Today we have a crazy story of an entitled aunt at a wedding. We'll get into that in a bit, but first, Dad lies at our peril at the restaurant. A new and rather upscale Chinese restaurant opened not far from us, and we agreed with Dad that we, Dad and 3 late teens, should try it. Word was that you actually had to make reservations, this place was so popular, and Dad did that, reservation for 4 at 7 o'clock. The day came and Dad suddenly gets the idea to invite his mom, who lives alone and doesn't even like Chinese food, but she eagerly agrees, and we eventually show up at 7. Dad gives our name, says we have reservations. They say, "You have a reservation for 4, not 5. "No, I said 5, Dad lies as we cringe. They reply, "I took reservation, you said 4. Dad replies, "No, I said 5. The host reluctantly decides to lead us to a booth clearly designed for 4 people, then finds a hard chair to put at the end of the table. I draw the short straw and get the chair. We decide on 4 dishes to share and place our order. Any Chinese place, in our city anyway, will bring your choices out on big platters at the same time and everyone digs in, filling their plate. Only this time, 1 platter arrives. We eventually start picking at it out of desperation, and maybe 10 minutes later another dish arrives, another 10, and number 3 arrives. Number 4 shows up half an hour after the first. How to get your payback on some lying guy who demands you produce seating for 5? We did not enjoy the meal, and I think the staff didn't mind getting stiffed on the tip. I don't know if Dad got the message. Yeah, the biggest problem here is the dad clearly is not going to learn anything from this experience. I feel like it would be nice to point out what exactly went down and say, next time, you probably should commit to the reservation you make. I mean, thanks a lot. If I were OP, I would feel like I could never show my face in that restaurant again. Hydra commented, "It sounds like a pretty uncomfortable meal for everyone involved. The staff definitely got their petty revenge on your dad, and you guys were just collateral damage." Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys enjoy crazy stories of entitled parents, why not hit those like and subscribe buttons down below? That said, our next story is Mother Destroys Son's Hopes for the Future. My family have been working as invigilators, exam supervisors, for the state's education department for years. My mom does it, my sister does it, my ex-wife did it. It only comes up for 2.5 weeks per year, as they're only needed for the end-of-year exams for those in their final year of school. This year, I got roped into doing it as well due to a general shortage of supervisors. I was at today's exam when the chief supervisor, who happens to be my mother, comes up to me with an unbelievable story. My sister, working at a different high school, was approached by one of the teachers asking for a copy of the psychology exam booklet. Here's the thing, teachers aren't allowed to ask for them. A supervisor must drop a copy off at the school's reception desk. I should know because I've done it every exam I worked. Later, another teacher turns up. You may notice the lack of quotation marks with the second teacher. That's because it's the school's only psychology teacher who knew better than to ask for a copy of the book. This legitimate teacher showed up only at the end of the exam to see how her students went, I think. Those details were omitted due to the nature of the following information. It turns out the first teacher wasn't a teacher at all but did work at the school. She was after a copy of the exam because her son was taking it and she wanted it for reasons? Even if she did obtain a copy, it would have been too late as she wouldn't have been allowed into the exam hall to give her kid the answers. She had no way of contacting her son, as phones, smartwatches, and smart glasses were prohibited items not to be taken into the hall. Moreover, given the complex nature of some of the questions, I have a psychology degree and was confused by some, she would have spent more time researching the answers than the length of the exam. So even if she somehow mastered all the intricacies of psychology in mere hours, it would have been pointless, particularly as there was no way she could have relayed the information as previously mentioned. Now, this woman's job is very much in jeopardy, and her son will likely receive an automatic fail regardless of how well he performed. This blemish on his record will also likely follow him when he applies for any university. There are only 4 in our city, denying him the chance to do whatever it was he wanted. His mother's beliefs the rules didn't apply to her has effectively doomed her son, though she will likely never see it this way. Sorry I couldn't go into more detail, that's as much information as I received. Also have to leave for work. Farewell. I think if it can be reasonably proved and assumed that even if they did obtain that copy, there wouldn't be any way to relay it to their kid, then their kid really shouldn't be punished for this, because you can't just assume the kid was in on it. I mean, I don't think it's a crazy notion to assume that there are parents that would try to do this without even consulting or keeping their kids in the know that this was even going to be a thing. I mean, a parent smart enough to even try to go get that copy is probably also at the same level of intelligence that they somehow thought they could just drop it off at their kid's desk in the exam hall. Cheated Cloud 243 commented, "I don't understand how the son who hasn't cheated despite his mom should be auto-failed." ULUUS commented, "Probably one of those make an example out of them rules. Nonsensical as freak, designed only to instill as much fear as they can on whoever pays heed." Our next story is, "My mother is coming to visit me, and I'm scared of how she'll behave. I, 29-year-old female, am married to a Korean and living in South Korea. I've been here since 2019. Neither of my parents came to my wedding. My dad didn't want to quarantine because he's an American and he won't let another country strip him of his rights. My mom didn't want to come because the flight was too long. On the same month of my wedding, she alone drove 12 hours to Florida to see a witch doctor and go clubbing. My mom is a Panamanian who's lived in the US for a little over 20 years, yet she doesn't speak English well because she hates the language, it's so ugly, and she doesn't need to learn it since her children can translate for her. Well, a few months ago, my mom told me that she really misses me and she wants to see me. She asked me to come back and visit her. I said I couldn't because it wouldn't be fair to my husband. I go on vacation while he works and funds my vacation. My mom got upset and kept bringing it up for weeks. I jokingly suggested if she really wanted to see me, she should fly out here. She said never. She doesn't want to go to China. A week after that conversation, she said she'll fly out to me. I was hesitant to believe her and sarcastically said, "Sure, come anytime. You're always welcomed." Well, she followed through and got a ticket. It's non-refundable, but she can reschedule it. Since buying the ticket, she's come up with so many demands. She's not even here yet and I'm going crazy. Her first demand is that she must stay with my husband and I in our tiny 2-bedroom apartment. The second room is more like a closet. She's afraid of getting S8 in her hotel room. She truly believes that Korea is a very unsafe country and that she's getting attacked if she's alone. She declared that she'll sleep on the bed with me and my husband can take the floor since Chinese people like being on the floor anyway. I offered to sleep with her in her hotel until she's comfortable. She blew up in a rage, spewing random things about SA and that she'll do what she wants. Her second demand is that we must immediately go to the nearest US base, 2.5 hours away, so that she can go grocery shopping because she doesn't trust Korean grocery stores. She's afraid they'll trick her into buying dog meat or that they label dog meat as pork or beef. She'll only be eating her home-cooked meals and will not eat at restaurants because she's seen too many TikToks about dirty Chinese restaurants. My husband has made it clear that the first week she's here, we will not be taking her to a base. She had a huge meltdown but convinced herself that she will be fine surviving on chicken eggs and white rice until then. Her third demand is that I take her to the penis park. My husband is willing to drive us out there 4 hours to appease her, but he's not happy about her demanding tone. She's also asked that I take her clubbing, but I not only refused, told her most clubs have an age limit and she's way over it. She has several other demands that I'll skip over. Today we had a huge argument because my in-laws want to meet her. I've been trying to come up with different excuses, but my in-laws keep insisting. My mom told me that she won't eat anything they cook if we go to their home, and if we go out to eat, she's only going to eat white rice. She's always made unnecessary comments about my husband's family and she doesn't even know them. She's never even met my husband. She threw a temper tantrum when I said that I want her to be on her best behavior and asked her not to embarrass me. How dare I? I'm embarrassed of her? She's done nothing wrong. How could I make her out to be a bad person? She's going on this long and strenuous journey to see her daughter, and her daughter cannot appreciate this sacrifice she's making. She threatened to cancel her flight. I said that would be fine. She didn't like that I reacted that way, so she threw another fit, called me a bad daughter, said it was my duty to go see her, not the other way around, and she said a lot of out-of-pocket wild things. She arrives in exactly 1 week. I'm not necessarily saying that OP should cut off that relationship with their mom, but I am kind of thinking in my mind, when does enough become enough and OP just stops putting up with this? I mean, even just the fact that they keep saying all of these ridiculous things about Chinese people when the whole thing is in Korea. Like, they don't even have that basic level of decency to understand what country this is all in and what his nationality is. Kivo Jazz commented, "Wow, that sounds like such a tough situation. It's clear you've made a life you're proud of in Korea, but your mom's unrealistic demands and rude comments are definitely going to make her visit challenging. Honestly, you're not a bad daughter for setting boundaries. Her behavior shows a lack of respect for both you and your husband's life and culture. I think you've been more than patient with her demands, and she needs to understand that her fears and judgments don't give her the right to disrespect you or your husband's family. If she threatens to cancel, it might honestly be better to let her, especially if she's unwilling to adjust her attitude. You're allowed to expect a level of respect and compromise from her, and if she can't meet that, it's okay to prioritize your peace and happiness. I hope it goes as smoothly as possible, but don't hesitate to stand your ground." Our next story is entitled "Mom Yelled at Me for Doing My Job." For context, I, 18-year-old female, work at a coffee shop in a very small/very popular beach tourist town. I've been working there since March. The way that we make our coffee is that our small and medium sizes get 2 shots of espresso and the large has 4 shots. We do offer decaf espresso drinks. We have 4 stations when it comes to making the drinks: cashier, cup prep/food runner, espresso, and mixer/server. Mixer/server was where I was working this day. Story: I'm working my usual busy shift during 4th of July week. As I was finishing up the entitled mother's drinks, she saw me pour 4 shots of espresso into one of her large drinks, and this is the conversation that happened after. She had ordered 2 large iced caramel macchiatos, 1 large latte with ice on the side, and 1 large hot Americano. She said, "Excuse me, how much espresso did you just put in that drink?" I say, "Our large drinks come with 4 shots of espresso, ma'am." She replies, "All of the larges have 4 shots of espresso? Shouldn't you advertise that crap somewhere? I'm a mother with 2 children and you're expecting to drink basically 2 cups of coffee?" I look behind her and see 2 young girls, probably aged 9 to 12. They had each ordered 2 large caramel macchiatos. I said, "I'm sorry, ma'am, do you want me to remake these and make these decaf so they don't have any caffeine in it?" She replies, "I don't know, this is your job. Can't you just mix one of them and put it in a smaller cup? I mean, this is outrageous. How do you expect 2 little girls to finish 2 large coffees? I mean, this is completely insane. Are you freaking crazy?" At this point, my shift lead, 18-year-old female who's standing next to me the whole time and had heard the whole entire conversation, asked if everything was all right. I try to explain this situation, but the entitled mother cut me off and rants for a bit about how incompetent I am. We decide to split one of the caramel macchiatos just to appease her and get her moving because this commotion was making a line. I'm making her final drink, she's still staring at me like I'm the devil, and I say in my very nice customer service voice, "Have a nice day, ma'am." She replies, "I still haven't gotten my final drink." She yells this directly in my face, as her final drink is halfway in between me and her in my hand. At this point, I've gotten a little behind on my station and I turn to finish that. She gathers her kids and her drinks and walked away, so in total she had gotten 2 medium caramel macchiato, her large latte, her Americano, and she took the other large caramel macchiato that she had originally ordered, which is why she was angry in the first place. So instead of walking away with her original 4 drinks, she got 5 instead. I just found it funny and laughed with my shift lead while she was extremely ticked on my behalf. I just don't understand why she didn't ask for this when she was talking to the cashier. We have alternatives in smaller sizes. So hearing the story, I'm actually worried on the kids' behalf, not because of the caffeine, but because this kind of seems like the kind of parent that orders stuff for their kids, especially food, and doesn't actually analyze beforehand what they're even giving to their kid. I mean, it doesn't take a genius to know that you probably shouldn't be giving a 9 to 12-year-old a large espresso anything. I mean, the parent themselves should kind of know that. I mean, what are you trying to do? Ruin your evening by having to pry your kids off the ceiling fan? Excellent ad 1132 commented, "Because she got 5 drinks instead of 4, you got conned. You should have tossed the one that he made that she said was wrong and watched her Pikachu face." Our next story is, entitled Aunt Brought Extra Guests to My Wedding? Not sure what to do. I, 22-year-old female, just got married on Friday. It was a gorgeous day and everything went perfectly except for my aunt. For context, we rarely get together as a family. They only get invited to larger milestones such as weddings. Her one son, 25-year-old male, cycles through girlfriends, and my rule for the wedding was that they had to be dating for longer than a year in order to be invited as a +1. This is the same stipulation my sister had at her wedding a year prior, and the same aunt caused issues about this, so I should have seen this coming. Anyways, 2 weeks before the wedding, we saw each other at a family baptism and found out my cousin had a new girlfriend. Shocker. She did seem super sweet, I have nothing against her. So I spoke with my aunt and told her the final numbers were in for the venue for food, but since she lives in the same town as the reception, she could come at 9 once all the formalities were finished. She seemed pleased with this and said she would pass along the message. Didn't think anything of it until the wedding day. Cousin's new girlfriend was at the church. I thought, okay, that's not a big deal, whatever. But after the church, we were doing extended family photos. She was there, with my cousin inviting her, not any pic he's in. At that point I was ticked, but it was cold and I wanted to be done with pics, so I let it slide. Once photos were finished and we were waiting for dinner, cousin's girlfriend is still there. So I go to talk to my mom and ask what is up, like did she know anything? And she's like, Aunt talked to me today saying that cousin's girlfriend is coming and we'll all just scoop food off our plate for her. Didn't talk to me at all. And it's not even about the food, but like physical place settings. I had individualized cards for everyone and everything neatly laid out, and she just pulled up a chair to cousin's table. All my siblings who spoke to her all said she's so sweet and likely didn't know she wasn't even invited, and more likely my entitled aunt said she could come and that it was fine. My mom told me it's okay and to not get worked up about it since my grandparents who came from overseas were here for the wedding too. I didn't say anything to them and they never spoke to me the entire evening. Now I'm wondering if I should message my aunt and say how incredibly disrespectful her behavior is, or if I should just let it go. Most of my family is telling me to get over it and saying, oh, that's just who she is, but she shouldn't be able to get away with that. So what should I do? If I should message her, what should I even say? I really hate the notion of somebody saying, don't worry about it, it's not a big deal. I mean, in the greater scope of things, does it truly change all that much? Does it really ruin the wedding? Probably not. But I just hate the idea of somebody trying to talk away something when it's somebody's wedding and it's one of the most important days of their lives. Don't worry about it, it's not a big deal. Just let us walk all over you for this one night on your wedding day, it's no problem. Shusagi9123 commented, and that's why she's the entitled bench she is. Because everyone, including your mother, enables her. I would definitely call her out even if nobody else does. If people bench, just say sorry, this is the way I am. QCR8onQ commented, I'm petty. No worries, now that I know that you view numbers and counts as flexible, I can't wait for you to host an event. Our next story is Santa Pics. As we get closer to the holidays, many of you will start getting into the Christmas spirit by going to see your local mall Santa Claus for pictures. This is simply a PSA for those who do decide to go. I have no idea if I'm allowed to do this here, but on the off chance it stands, I hope this will help someone out there. I've worked in my local Santa set for 6 seasons and have seen a lot. These are the easiest ways to avoid Karens, to avoid being a Karen yourself, and to make the trip a good experience for you, your kids, and the employees helping you. This is based on a culmination of all of my experiences with different types of customers, both good and bad. Also, for those that have also done these types of things, worked it, go get pics every year, etc., feel free to also share your experiences. I'm sure that there are places that do it differently than my mall set. Mine's been consistently top 3 to 4 in my state for profit, so I think we do a good job despite all these issues we encounter yearly, but your experiences are still valid. Go earlier in the year. If you don't want to wait in line or feel that your time is more important than others, go earlier in the seasons. Mine opens November 14th, others most likely will open around the same time. The closer you get to Christmas, the busier it will become and the longer you will wait. If it's popular, you could be waiting in line for hours and they will be irritable hours. Check for available prepay options. Check before you wait in line. Some Santa sets will allow you to pay in advance like a fast pass and you'll be able to wait in a much shorter line on the busier days. If you absolutely cannot get a day off before December hits, this will always be the best option. It can cut down the wait time by several hours depending on the day. Keep kids occupied while in line. If you have kids of any age, make sure they're occupied. We all have seen kids acting out in public and have resented those parents for allowing that type of behavior. Just because your child is normally an angel does not mean they can bear to be unstimulated for hours in a slow-moving line. Teenagers get away with having technology and an internal map of the mall to be left alone, but kids under that age range should not be expected to sit still on their own. They get curious, they get excited to see Santa, they get hungry, they get bored, and they get upset. The worse they feel, the worse you'll be, and when you're upset, your kids will absorb and reflect that, creating a negative feedback loop that may put you in the crosshairs of the hourly waged workers. Have more than one adult in the group. Preferably don't be the only adult in your group. Bathroom breaks are the worst when you are waiting in line for several hours. None of the employees are obligated to save your spot in line. Some may be nicer than others. Sometimes you'll get lucky and you'll come back and the line is really short. You should have everyone in your group go before getting in line, but for those that have an emergency, babies, elderly people, weak bladders, kids who didn't have to go before, or discovering the difference a coffee does after 3 hours of standing around, you should have someone else responsible with you to save your spot in line. Single parents should have a friend with them at least, or somehow make friends in line. You will regret having to leave a line after 2 hours being 5 spots away from the front because your child can't hold it. Be a responsible pet owner. Please check beforehand your Santa set's rules on pets. Most will allow you to bring them, but pet nights are better. I cannot speak for other malls, but my Santa has a different suit that is worn on pet night. This is for the safety of other people who may have allergies to pets. We know that your animals may be like your children and you want to get that special moment with them, and I don't blame you. I have 2 beautiful dogs myself and have made sure to get them pictures whenever I can. But understand that we have to account for those that are unlucky enough to have pet allergies. This also goes for cats, reptiles, farm animals, birds, and fish as well. Yes, people have brought fish and paid real money for their pictures. Also, while waiting in line, all of the above should apply to your animals as well. Be responsible pet owners and treat them like their children. They should behave in line, keep them mildly stimulated if you have to, and on pet nights, understand that there are other animals as well. If they don't do well with other animals, they probably won't do well in line. Check if you can prepay and have someone who's not standing in line hold the animals off to the side to avoid conflict with others in line. Understand how the lines work? If there's a way to prepay, both lines have things to understand. While the rules may be hard to understand, they are essentially fast passes like the ones you would see at Disney. They do not guarantee you get in at the exact time you pay for because others have paid for the same time. These are not appointments. If you prepaid for 5:30, there might be 3 to 5 other families who paid the same time. 3 to 5 other families who paid for the next 15-minute time slot. You're paying early to be in a faster line, not to get to skip the line. Please keep in mind that while your line moves faster, the standby line will still have some families go before yours based on how many were taken in a row. Maybe 3 fast pass families to 1, maybe 5 to 1. Don't be that guy to complain about one family going before yours despite your line moving like 5 times as fast. If you're in the standby line, understand that you forfeit the right to complain about the long waits no matter when you decide to go, especially closer to Christmas. People that paid will have priority. Your line will be slow. That's just the nature of this business. Your child will cry. Expect and accept it. Rule of thumb, if you can't get your own child to smile, don't expect us to do it. We'll try our best, but understand that Santa is still a strange old man that's not mommy or daddy. Around the ages of 18 months to 4 years old, they are prime age to understand that the lap they're sitting on is foreign. You as the parent should be a part of trying to get them to smile if that's what you want. Otherwise, don't expect us to do any better. This is a pop-up store with mostly teenagers. None of us are trained professionals, and not every method we have will work, and if it does, it's a blessing. Even with your help, they may still cry and scream. Accept it and come back another time, or just take the photos as is. It is very funny when you can show these embarrassing pictures to your teenagers later on. This is also another reason you should come earlier in the season. If you don't like how they come out the first time, you can come back and redo them later, while trying on Christmas Eve is a one-and-done endeavor. Choose your people, not your poses. The photographer has likely been doing it long enough to know how to position everyone effectively to get the most out of your session and still conform to the time crunches. If you have multiple people, come to the set already knowing who's going in the pictures, whether that be mom, dad, baby, and then just baby, or having a group of 10 and separating it into 3 individual families, the large one and then the kids. Know who's getting in the pictures, then let the photographer decide how everyone is placed. They will know better than you. You should come in with your own pose if you know what you want to do. Notify them before you start, not during the session. They will have a rhythm they'll want to stick to for efficiency's sake. Don't worry about the printouts. The photographer is most likely the one sending the photos to be printed. 95% of the time, they've already chosen the best photo. You may be able to ask to look at the rest of the file, but most of the time, you'll just choose the same picture the photographer chooses, unless you wanted a different pose printed out. For example, wanting the one of the baby by themselves instead of all the kids, or taking the screaming baby photo over the one of the baby and Santa looking at each other. To save time and not be in the way, trust that the photographer has done this before. Warn the workers of special needs. If you have a child with special needs, please tell the workers beforehand so they can prepare as you work your way up. Most sets are flexible when it comes to anyone with a lighter sound sensitivity, or if you need more room for wheelchair accessibility. Merry Christmas versus Happy Holidays. Some employees are going to say Merry Christmas, some are going to say Happy Holidays. Both are fine, except that. I personally have had issues with a Jewish family who got upset with me on a Santa set saying Merry Christmas. I've also had people get mad at me for saying Happy Holidays instead of Merry Christmas. If you have a problem with either in a setting like that, you are a terrible person. Just because it's a Santa set does not mean we can't acknowledge and let others celebrate their own holiday during the season for these special and magical holidays. On that same note, Santa is more famous as an icon of Christmas, even if celebrated by other cultures. It is not an insult to say Merry Christmas in a Christmas setting. Just say thanks, you too, and move on if you really have a problem. Put personal cameras away. Parents, we see you sneaking pictures and videos on your phone. You aren't sly about it, nor are you unique for thinking about it. While we hate it, remember that outside of the set is not property of the set. It's property of the mall, and we cannot dictate what you do outside of the set. Inside the set, unless told so, assume that you will be told to put away any recording devices away or be forced off the set. I cannot stress enough that the same rules apply to video as they do for pictures. You cannot be charged for any pictures or video you take outside the set. Do what you will with that information. Treat workers with respect. This is a seasonal job, which means hourly workers, basically minimum wage workers. Please treat them with the same respect you would want shown to you. Without them, you don't get the memories of your kid's first Christmas with Santa, or the massive group photo with your extended family. Kicking out one customer does not change how much they get paid. Don't be that one customer we all get to talk about for the rest of the season. I'll try to answer any questions you have or clarify anything I need to. So having read this, all I can think of is 2 things. 1, OP sounds like a very scorned Santa mall helper. Must have had some seriously bad experiences over the years of being a little helper. And 2, I just can't help but think of the scene from the movie A Christmas Story. The little brother gets put up on the mall Santa's lap and immediately just starts screaming. When it's the main character's turn, they get put on Santa's lap, but they get too stunned in the moment to say anything. The grumpy elf helper sets them on the slide to go slide back down to the line. They fight the slide, they crawl back up, they look at Santa and say, "I want a Red Ryder BB gun." Santa goes, "You'll shoot your eye out," boots the kid in the face, and he slides all the way down to the bottom. That said, I think I was taken to a mall Santa when I was like 4. I'm pretty sure I cried. And not happy tears either, I was freaked out. Pepsi Lover 12 commented, "Where I live, you can schedule the time for your Santa Pics so you don't have to wait in line. There's also another section with another Santa for kids where it's quiet and lit dimly. So kids with the special circumstances where noise, light, and lots of people stress them out can set up a time to get pics and have some one-on-one time with Santa and no other kids. OP responded saying, "I really like this idea. I wish we could do something like this at my location. We just don't have the space to make something like that. Corporate would have to make a bigger set and they're a little too cheap for something like that." But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another crazy entitled parent story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.